Hi, I'm Blair, and welcome to Cellar Notes. I'm joined today by Hannah O'Leary from Jameson. She's the Jameson Brand Ambassador, and welcome to the show. Thanks for being here with us.
Thanks for having me.
And lovely accent.
Thank you.
I just wanted to ask you, first of all, how you got started in the business. You know, what did you do from the time that you realized you wanted to be in the business to get to where you are today?
I always liked the drinks industry. I knew I wanted to get into marketing and sales, and the drinks industry was always like really appealing to me. One, because I'm Irish, and it's definitely a part of my, my social scene.
It's not a prerequisite, but it does help, right?
It does help. It does help. But I always thought it was just a great industry because it's so fast moving. There's so much going on. There's so many innovations happening, and the consumers are, pretty loyal. It's pretty interesting, and you get a lot of people, and especially Jameson has that. Like our fans are massive Jameson fans, and they drink Jameson, and it's how do you create that and that buzz around a brand? And I just found it so interesting. So I knew that was kind of the direction I wanted to go, and I just was sitting there, and I was about to finish college in about 3 months, and I didn't have a job, and I was thinking, what am I going to do with myself? And traveling was always in the back of my mind. Maybe I'll just pack it all in and go off somewhere. And then I saw an ad for Jameson, which was Jameson Brand Ambassador, and I knew that I wouldn't be the ambassador in Ireland. I would be the ambassador somewhere in the world. So that kind of ticked off my traveling box. And then the working in the drinks industry as well was another huge part of that. So it all kind of just came together, went to the interview process. I think started off with 600 people, and there was about 12 that were chosen. So that was kind of it was a whittling down process, but it was absolutely brilliant, and I haven't looked back since.
How long have you been the brand ambassador then?
This is my second year, so I'm about 1.5 years into it now. I spent the last year in Amsterdam in the Netherlands.
Oh,
so
wow.
that was my first signing, my first posting is in Amsterdam, which was a fantastic city and such a great place to be for a year. And then they asked me, do you want to go to the US? So I jumped on that opportunity as fast as I could as well. So
wonderful. What all is entailed in being a brand ambassador? What is it exactly that you do? I understand you represent the brand, but you obviously do a lot of traveling. Do you go to certain functions, tastings, things like that? Or?
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, I do radio interviews, and I do lots of different things, especially around March. My schedule just gets crazy, and Christmas and really busy periods. But so I'll do radio interviews, I'll do tastings, I do bartender training. So I train bartenders on whiskey, like the differences between Irish, American, Scotch whiskey. And then I'm also going to go for dinners. We've got Jameson events and Jameson consumer tastings and samplings. So such a wide variety of things. And then a lot of the time I'm spending in the air, flying between all my markets and that kind of thing. So it's a hectic life, but it's a very, very fun one.
Yeah, it sounds fun.
It's work hard, play hard.
That's the best way to do it.
Exactly.
As long as you brought it up, let's touch on that a little bit. Obviously, Jameson, the flagship brand, is the one that everyone's familiar with, and you talked about the loyalty there.
Yes.
We see that in the store as well. You know, if you're a Jameson person, you're a Jameson person. That's all there is to it.
Yeah,
there's a couple others that have come along. Maybe you could talk a little bit about those, the Gold Reserve, the 12-year.
Yeah, these are absolutely kind of additions to our family, but we are a very signature family. So Jameson is Jameson. If you like and you know Jameson, you will definitely recognize similarities. But the nice thing is that there's also differences. So they are going to excite the taste buds a little bit, and they are going to give you something else to work with. So with the Jameson Original, our kind of, I guess our brand DNA, our kind of what we stand for is we're always triple distilled. So our whiskey is always going to be triple distilled, giving you a very, very smooth spirit that you're going to start off with. And we mature in 2 different types of barrels. So we use sherry and we use bourbon casks. And they're barrels that have previously been used to mature either sherry or bourbon. So we use both of them separately and mature in those. So that's our brand DNA. With the 12-year-olds, we're going to dial up that maturation process to about 12 years, minimum of 12 years in each barrel. So 12 years in sherry and 12 years in bourbon after being triple distilled. Sherry is very influential in terms of the impact that the barrel has on the maturation process in terms of color and flavor. So you're going to get much more sherry influence. So you're going to get that sherry sweetness, that nuttiness, a light spice to the whiskey, but also that vanilla influence coming from the bourbon. So if you like and you drink Jameson, Jameson 12 is a very, very nice progression. It doesn't diverge too far away from the Jameson taste and flavor, and it just kind of dials it up. So it's like, I say it's like turning up the volume, but kind of taking out any of that scratching and any of that noise.
Perfect.
So a really smooth, very, very smooth finish. The gold is where we start to get a little bit creative. It gets a little bit different. So what we do with the gold is we actually mature one part of it in a virgin oak cask. That's a barrel that's never held any other spirit before. So it's a hardened wood. It's completely charred on the inside. That doesn't introduce an element of smoke, but it opens up the whiskey entirely, or opens up the barrel to the whiskey that's going to be inside it. So you get a lot of influence from the wood. So you're going to get a lot of kind of natural sugars and natural sweetness from that wood. A lot of natural vanilla flavors, particularly because we use American white oak. So that American white oak is going to give all of that vanilla influence, and then you're going to get some natural oils as well. And those natural oils that are in the wood make the whiskey very, very creamy, but they also make it a little bit spicy. So there's a peppery finale on the gold, which is quite unusual, and it's actually something that bourbon drinkers, believe it or not, tend to really, really go for, because they like that spiciness, they like all of that vanilla influence that's coming in. And with Jameson Gold, you get all of that, but you also get an Irish triple distilled whiskey. So it's a fantastic one as well.
You touched on this a little bit earlier. What is the difference then, as you talk to people, you know, around the United States and around the world? What do you explain the difference is between Irish, Canadian, American, Scotch whiskeys?
There's a few different differences. Well, I suppose I'm biased, but I kind of take Ireland as my base. We were where whiskey production started. It's the heritage and the history of whiskey across the world. So if you take that as the base and you take a triple distilled whiskey, we distilled 3 times, 3 separate stills, all beside each other, and the whiskey will go through each of them. If you're doing that in Scotland, they've actually decided to distill 2 times. So they distill their whiskey twice. American and bourbon whiskies will be distilled 1 time. So it's a slightly different process, and we get a very, very pure spirit, but a lot of people like that the Scotch hops in the tongue a little bit, and the American whiskey has a bit more of a fiery character to it. So it's just a preference on what you're looking for. But Irish whiskey, triple distilled, that's a very big difference in the number of distillations. Also in the actual grain that we're going to use. The indigenous product to Ireland is barley, so barley is the base grain for Jameson. Scots are also going to use a lot of barley, but rye grows much better in the US, so the American whiskey is a lot of the time made from rye, and bourbon legally has to be made from 51% corn. So you're going to get a lot of corn in that mash bill, so you're going to have a slightly sweeter style of whiskey with the bourbon. That's another big difference, and then the time that a whiskey will spend in the barrel. Scottish and Irish whiskey has to be a minimum of 3 years in a barrel. Jameson, our lowest we ever go is 5 years, but 3 years is the minimum. American bourbon whiskey is 1 year and 1 day in a virgin oak cask, and that's their legalities. The other big thing for us is that we never peat our malt. So when we're creating the malt that we put into our whiskey, we're never going to peat it, which means we don't burn any smoke through the malt. Doing that means that we actually never ever have a smoky flavor to Jameson. If you find a Jameson with a smoky flavor, it's not Jameson. They didn't give you Jameson, they gave you something else. So whereas the Scots, it's a very kind of signature trait of Scottish whiskey and some more experimental Irish whiskies that will do that. So with a Scotch whiskey, you'll find a lot of them to be heavily peated, and then they're going to have that really smoky character.
Let me move on to like distribution, say. You know, obviously Jameson is a worldwide brand, and I don't know if you have these numbers, but and we don't necessarily need the numbers, but throughout the year, you know, I'm sure there's peaks and valleys. Jameson does very well throughout the entire year, but what about St. Patrick's Day? What about Christmas? Do you see fluctuations there?
Yeah, there definitely are peaks, our massive peaks. So we say that we have kind of 2 Christmases every year. Most brands have 1, but we have 2 Christmases. So that's going to be at Christmas itself with the gifting season, the holiday season, and then again in March. Everybody is picking up a bottle of Jameson just to give to somebody or just for a bit of fun, or drinking it in the bars, of course. So March and Christmas are definitely our peaks, but it's actually one of the most versatile brands, I believe, on the market, because you can drink it in so many different occasions. I mean, what other kind of drink is going to be drank in an Irish coffee that's going to be drank with a ginger ale or a cranberry juice? It's going to be on the rocks, it's going to be neat with some water. There's so many different drinking occasions where you're going to be out in a club getting crazy with some friends, or you're going to be sitting back relaxing at home, or having an Irish coffee at some point after a meal or something like that. So the variety of occasions that you can drink Jameson make it like a staple for a back bar. If you have your own home bar, makes it a staple, but it also means that we have a very good kind of continuity throughout the year. But definite peaks in March. That's
Everybody wants to be Irish in March, right?
Everybody is Irish in March.
Oh,
you know,
okay.
for us, being Irish is a state of mind. It's about the character, and everyone's Irish inside. You know, if you have that character, if you like to have fun and make jokes and just be friendly and welcoming and open, that kind of that's about being Irish. It's not about. And actually, the amount of people I've met in the US who are actually Irish as well, who have the Irish heritage and the Irish blood running through their veins. So it's everyone's Irish on St. Patrick's
Sure,
Day.
absolutely. Is there anything new, any secrets you can divulge, anything new coming down the pipe for Jameson? I know that rums and vodkas obviously are big into flavors
Yes.
now. Some whiskeys have gone with some honey or some spice or something.
Yeah.
Is there anything like that coming with Jameson, or are they sticking to their roots?
No, we're sticking to our roots. You know, we firmly kind of believe that a matured whiskey that's going to, well, taste this good on its own. It doesn't need any of those kind of additions to it. So we are not really experimenting with flavors, but we are, of course, increasing our family all the time. So you won't get flavored whiskeys, but we do have some coming down the line. I don't know whether I should mention them or not because I don't know how soon they're coming. But there
we'll keep it
will
a
be
secret.
extensions to the Jameson line that are moving into the US within the next year anyway.
Okay,
so
great.
you'll definitely be seeing a few.
Don't tell anyone. Exactly. One more question. Right now, you are Jameson Brand Ambassador.
Yes.
Do you have aspirations to become Jameson Master Distiller or anything like that? What do you see in your future?
But would you believe it? I know I'm young, but I'm definitely too old. If I wanted to be the Jameson Master Distiller, I would have had to start training when I was 10, maybe. Our Master Distiller now, his name is Barry Crockett, and Barry Crockett is like in his late 70s, and he's working out of the distillery, and he was actually born on the side of the distillery to the master distiller. He was his father, and his grandfather was a master distiller, and he was born on site and in the distiller's cottage.
So you're in the wrong family.
I'm not in the right family. Yeah, exactly. Born into the wrong family, and I also don't have a degree in, the science of distillation and fermentation and things. So
you're going to stick with Jameson for a while, though, and.
Yeah, I don't even know where my path's going to take me. It's the million-dollar question, but I know in 10 years' time I'm still going to be drinking Jameson.
Wonderful.
That's for definite.
Wonderful. And you're doing a great job. And thank you so much for joining us here.
Much.
And I really
Thanks for having
appreciate
me
you
in.
being with us. And thanks you for being with us on Cellar Notes. We'll see you next time.
Bye.